State's next witness is Dr. Jennifer Burns.
Good morning. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. May I have a seat? And doctor, if you please state your full name and spell it for the record.
Sure. My name is Jennifer Burns, Jennifer, B as in boy, Yrnes.
How are you employed, ma'am?
I am an associate professor at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas.
What's your position beyond that?
So I teach, I do research, and I do service, which includes serving as a consult as needed for the Clark County office of the Coroner Medical Examiner's Office.
And are you what's called a forensic anthropologist?
Yes, so I am board certified by the American Board of Forensic Anthropology.
And so that would be your certification, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any other certifications?
No, that's it. Otherwise, I have my degrees.
Can you tell us about that?
Sure. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Biology with minors in Anthropology and Chemistry from SUNY College at Geneseo. I have a master's degree and PhD, both in anthropology from the University of Buffalo.
And obviously you have many degrees, certification. Do you also undergo training and things of that nature ongoing?
Sure. So I regularly attend the American Academy of Forensic Sciences as well as the American Association of Biological Anthropology conferences, which isn't exactly training per se, but it's just demonstrating continuing education because that's where we get to see stuff before it's published.
And do you know someone by the name of Dr. Clara Ralston?
Yes, she is my former postdoc.
And where did you work with her?
She was at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas in my lab as a postdoc scholar. Now she is at the New York City office of the Coroner Medical Examiner as a forensic anthropologist.
So she's a forensic anthropologist as well?
Correct.
Okay. As a forensic anthropologist, I think you mentioned that there are consults that you do. What are the types of questions that you're tasked with investigating when you get a consult?
Sure. So it depends on the case, right? So sometimes we're asked to assist with an identification if they don't know who the person is. Sometimes if they know who the person is, or maybe they don't, we get asked to assist with trauma, which is traumatic injuries, which can include blunt force, sharp force, high velocity projectile trauma or gunshot wounds, and thermal alterations.
Can you walk us through what all of those terms mean, please?
Yeah. So blunt force trauma is probably the most commonly known one. So this occurs when a force is traveling at a relatively slow speed and impacts a relatively large area of the body. So like a motor vehicle accident usually causes blunt force trauma, for example. Sharp force trauma is when an implement that has a small surface area impacts a small area of bone with a relatively low amount of force, such as knives, such as saws. High velocity projectile trauma includes gunshot wounds and other types of trauma that has a small surface area that is traveling at a high speed or high velocity. Thermal alterations are heat or fire related trauma.
And can you sort of describe for the members of the jury here, what is your role as a forensic anthropologist, and how does that complement a medical examiner or a coroner's work?
So a medical examiner is a forensic pathologist who is a medical doctor, and I am not a medical doctor. I have a PhD in anthropology, so my trajectory is different. I work with what we call hard tissue. So this includes bone and cartilage. So forensic anthropologists specialize in the human skeleton. Forensic pathologist is typically looking for any soft tissue damage or changes from pathology. And so if they need additional information, they will call a forensic anthropologist to testify or, write a report on something specific such as identification or traumatic injuries when it impacts bone and cartilage.
Now, what are some of the processes you do during a consult? Can you walk us through that process?
Yeah, so it varies. If you have it varies based on the nature of the remains. So sometimes you get fully skeletonized remains, which means there's no soft tissue left. All the skin, muscle, organs are gone. Sometimes you have fully fleshed individuals that have traumatic injuries, and that might include blunt force, sharp force, gunshot wounds, where the pathologist calls us in and says, okay, we have this, we want more information about it. Can you help us by looking at this more specifically at the bone level? And we'll go in, we'll advise on how we need the sample or the specimen, and they'll move forward with removing it for us and providing it to us. So it basically depends on what the request is.
Okay, so ultimately you get a request and
Yes.
you follow through with
Correct.
the request, and that request is typically a question that needs answering.
Correct. Yeah. So
Within
sometimes it's tool marks, sometimes it's is there trauma, or a lot of times is it trauma, or were they scavenged by a coyote? Right.
So
and
a
so
broad
yeah.
range of things.
Yeah, it's a broad range of things that we get asked with a very specific intent of like what they want an answer to.
Now, you mentioned sharp force trauma or cases. About how many of those have you worked on in your career?
I've worked on 64 cases with actual report that I've generated reports for. 2 of those were sharp force trauma.
Have you ever worked on decapitations in your career?
I've only worked on 1.
And then I guess turning your attention to 2023, in your work, do you recall receiving a referral from the Clark County Coroner's Office in that year?
Yes, I do.
And did that referral include examining the remains of a Jonathan Willett?
I didn't know the decedent's name at the time, but yes.
Okay. But during your work on the case, you did develop what his name was, correct?
Yes, correct.
And you did an analysis of those remains, correct?
Correct.
Can you walk us through how you essentially got those remains and walk us through how that
Yeah,
happened?
sure. So it was sometime in August 2023. I got a call from the coroner's office, and the doctor wanted us to come in and give our, feedback on what we could do with assessing tool mark analysis, because it was a sharp force trauma incident. So myself and my postdoc, Dr. Clara Ralston at the time, went down to the office. We looked at the decedent and told them, okay, well, this is what we would need for you to do, is to excise this portion of the neck so that we can look at it more specifically under our stereo microscope. And so they excised that part. They macerated it, which is removal of the soft tissue, in their office. Under Dr. Clara Ralston's supervision, and then those remains were then packaged, chain of custody was followed, and it was transported by Dr. Ralston to our lab. That is when we go through the intake records on our part to make sure everything is present, nothing has been tampered with, and so we unbox it, take photos of that process. Once that is all completed, that's when we start our analysis, and we keep detailed bench notes that inform our report.
As part of conducting your analysis, are there photos taken of what you're examining?
Everything. Yes, we take lots and lots of photos. So those include photos with a digital SLR or digital camera, as well as with a microscope, which is called a stereo microscope. It's not like what you would traditionally think of as a microscope. It's looking at a higher or a lower level magnification.
And prior to testifying, you did look through
I did.
this package.
Yes.
Many photos here, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, permission to publish.
These are all that you gave?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
By stipulation between the parties. Showing states 495. What do we see there?
Yeah, so that is the paper bag that the remains were transported into our lab. That is a picture of the inside of our lab. So it's an unopened, stapled bag with the case number on it. And so that we take right before we open the bag to show the bag is unopened. This is how it arrived at our lab.
Then showing you 496. Is this the inside of the bag you just mentioned?
Correct. So that is the inside of the bag. The staples have been removed.
A little dark, but 498. do we see that there are contents to this bag?
Yes,
And would those be the samples that you had requested from the Clark
that's
County
correct.
Coroner's Office?
Yes.
So you've unpackaged these items. What do you do next?
Yeah, so once everything is unpackaged, that's documented, we start our report writing and our bench notes. We date everything, we say who's there, and then we describe the remains and what they look like. So these were macerated, again, that means the removal of soft tissue. So the bones look a little different because they were processed. So we describe what they look like, the exact anatomical position that, or the elements is what we would call them, the exact skeletal elements that we have, and anything else that we observe during that process.
Specifically, do you recall which items you were examining?
Yes, so we had possession of, so these are cervical vertebrae, which are parts of the neck, which is, so I brought this as a specimen so you could exactly see what we're looking at. The neck.
Do you mind actually stepping closer
okay.
to the jury just so that they
Sure.
can see what you're pointing to? I think that might be helpful.
Okay, so this is the head. The head meets up with what we call the cervical vertebrae, which are 7 vertebrae that make up your neck. And that lets you go all around with your head, right? And so what we had possession of was, so this up here is C1, which is cervical vertebra 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we had part of part of cervical vertebra 2. We had almost all of 3. We had 4 and part of 5. And so this was the part that was removed, was from 5 up to the part that we didn't have anything above that. So these were the ones that we were dealing with, the C3 primarily for the trauma analysis.
Is there anything interesting about the front of the skull based on your analysis after just pointing to those vertebrae that you think is important to note?
The front of the skull?
So the front of the neck.
Well, so the anatomy of the neck is complex, just as the rest of the spinal column. So the bones of the neck meet up at many different joints. So we have joints back here. We have a joint up in the front as well. And so when or if you were trying to take this apart, like if we were learning in a classroom, I would take this apart, right? And I'd show you all the different so I can pass these around so they can see that. Okay. So these are 2 different examples of cervical vertebrae. So you can see how small they are. That's when you see these pictures, they're going up a lot. So that's cervical vertebrae 2 and 1, or excuse me, 2 and 3, which is where the cut marks go through, are those 2 vertebrae. So the complexity of the joints between your vertebrae make it difficult to take them apart. And they're very, very sturdy, which is why when you move, your spinal column is like the base of all of your movement. And so there's many different joints here that make it complicated to actually remove or take them apart.
But not impossible, correct?
No, not impossible.
All right, if you don't mind taking a seat, doctor. So you mentioned that obviously a lot of photos were taken during your examination. Was there a grouping of photos that had annotations on them as well?
Yeah, so, when we write reports, we know what we're looking at in photos, but we want everyone else to know exactly what we're looking at. So what we'll do is we'll annotate them with different colored boxes or arrows in order to show exactly the features that we are trying to display.
Now then I am going to publish State 603. Can you describe for the members of the grand jury what we're seeing here and what was of note during your analysis?
Yeah, so this is cervical vertebra 3, which was being passed around. So you see how small that is when you're handling it, right? So that's blown up a bit because it's on a screen. But what we're looking at is the sharp force trauma that was analyzed for tool mark analysis on this bone. So the white boxes are in 5 different parts. Those represent what we well, I guess you'll probably ask me about this, what we determined was caused by a mechanically powered saw. So those are shaved off and polished. It's hard to see because it's such a small bone. The arrows, the orange arrows, are pointing to an area where there are incisions or cut marks that were not made by a mechanically powered saw. And so there's two different features there, which is what this overview is picturing. The other thing in this image is there's a tiny part of C2, or the cervical.
There's actually a mouse in front of you, so if you want to hover.
Please do not click it.
I will not click it.
Take care of everything.
I was informed beforehand not to do that. Yes. Yes. So this, can you see that? Yeah. Okay. This part right here is the bottom, or the body of cervical vertebra 2, which also got passed around because it meets up with C3. So this is the bottom of C2. It has it has sharp force trauma through it, which is, and it's still articulated, or it still meets up with C3 here. These parts here in the white boxes are showing, again, that polishing that we saw in our analysis that's consistent with a mechanically powered saw that made those marks. And the orange arrows here and there, 3 different parts, are showing incision or cut marks made by a hand-powered implement.
So just to stop you there, Doctor,
yeah.
2 separate implements we see evidence of here.
Correct.
And what is the evidence that you see to make that determination?
Yeah, so there's a fair amount of, we use a lot of, verified experimental research as well as case studies to back up our findings based on the features of the defects, which is what we would call these. So there's defects in bone, meaning it does not look like it's anatomically normal. So I'll start with the hand-powered tool, or the cut marks from that with the orange arrows. So those, can you show some of the other images? Because those will be more helpful to show.
Absolutely. Showing
how we determine that.
604?
That's good. Yep. So that small area is the small, I don't know who has the C3 anymore. Yeah. Okay. I can tell you exactly where it is and what you're looking at. All right. Is there a way for me to show them besides just, do you want me to just point? Point? Okay.
Whatever you prefer.
So this is C3, and it's specifically between my fingernails. This is how small the area you're looking at. So this is a joint with C2, which is above it. So this means up with C2. This is a joint. So you're looking at horizontal ridges in this joint right here. Okay? And those are very uneven, and they're not parallel. You can kind of see, like, okay, they're all over the place. And so that's typical of a hand-powered instrument, not a mechanically powered instrument. And that's how we determine, okay, that's a hand-powered instrument. It's the striations, which are kind of the scratch marks you see running across the screen, are all over the place. If it were mechanically powered, you'd expect it to be more uniform. The other thing you see with the black arrow, I don't know if you can see that very well. Point it out, now that you know the area we're looking at on here. So here are the what we would call striations, or grooves, which were made by a sharp implement or a point, something that has a bevel, and all knives have bevels. That's how you make your cut marks. Right here, where this black arrow is pointing, is so the direction, we can tell that the direction was from the back to the front, and it was with a hand-powered implement, because this right here is a chip. Do you see that kind of triangle? It's not a perfect triangle. It kind of looks like
Yes, right underneath the arrow, correct?
Right underneath that. That's a chip. So that's called exit chipping. So when you're cutting something, sometimes you pull the implement out and a chip will fall off. So that's showing the direction of the implement.
And I just want to stop you right there. So we're able to see that this implement was back to front. Is that correct?
That's correct. So that was back to front. Again, back is, back here. So it was the implement was traveling in that direction. Okay.
And that's based on your examination with a microscope
Yep.
of the grooving.
Correct.
Showing you 605.
Yeah.
What is of note here?
That's the same area. So now instead of looking at that little joint from what we'd call posterior or the back, you're looking at it from the side. So specifically this little arrow right here, this is a very small area. So the scale isn't showing up very well here, but this is less than 1 millimeter, which is, I don't know, I can't do it. It's like that, very small. So this here is a V shape. You can see it's a V-shaped defect. We call that a kerf mark. A kerf mark is the actual base or the floor and the walls of where a sharp instrument has entered bone. Okay, so it kind of looks like a trough or I don't know how else to describe that. It's a V-shaped defect, and so you see the floor comes to a point, and you see the walls make a V. So that's typical of a non-serrated or serrated knife. So saws have larger, like their tooths are spread apart for the most part. The only other saw that could make this is a very fine tooth bow saw, but it's most consistent with a non-serrated or serrated knife because knives come to a bevel, and that is a V shape.
So it would be handheld but not powered.
Correct.
Is that what you're saying?
Yep. It's so yeah, all of these evidences that you're presenting, the photos, this is like very clear that, you know, the cross section of the implement was a V shape. It's consistent with a knife, and then the way the striations are going across the joint are uneven and they're not uniform, and that's again consistent with a hand-powered implement.
So we're still talking about hand-powered implement.
Yep, we're
correct?
still talking about one of the tools that was used.
Okay. Showing 606. What do we see there?
Okay, so that's the bottom of C2. So you're looking at C3 in I keep forgetting I can use this.
Yeah, use
Yeah,
the mouse.
so this is cervical vertebra 3 that you can see in the background. This part here is, again, the bottom of cervical vertebra 2 that was left on top of C3. Now, this right here is a piece that is missing. Again, I referenced exit chipping earlier in the other slide where you saw the little V shape. This is also a little chip that exited. This shows you directionality again. So this is the front of the body where this is. So this is the anterior front of the body. So you're looking like in the front here. You can't see it very well because the skull's on top. But that means the direction was from back to front, and the chip exited towards the front of the body.
So again, showing directionality.
Correct.
Showing you then 607. What do we see here?
So these, again, are striations. These are incomplete cut marks or incisions that you see the orange arrows pointing to. So this, again, C3 here, this is the back of the body. This is where the back is. You're looking at, again, a very small area. We call it the lamellar. It's just a little piece of bone that covers your spinal cord. So it's right here that you're looking at. And so the cut marks, you know, I just put my fingernail in there. They're probably smaller than that, but they're right here. So the other cut marks were here. These are here. And so you can see there's a couple different areas that the hand-powered, non-serrated or serrated knife would have hit.
So, in analyzing these remains, you were able to determine that 2 implements were used. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and they were what again?
So there was a hand-powered, non-serrated or serrated. We could not determine exactly. It was a single, straight blade of some sort. And then the second one is a mechanically powered saw.
Now, are you able to determine which implement was used first? Well,
So
let me pose it this way. Hypothetically, how hard is it to cut through bone with a handheld knife? Or cut through a neck?
So knives, anyone who has knives in their kitchen knows that they should be used for soft stuff. Like, if you're cutting chicken or beef, you're cutting through the flesh of the stuff you're trying to eat. If you try to cut through bone with that, it's not going to work. It's just going to leave an incision because bone is too hard. So I don't want to say it's impossible because there are bones that if you used enough force, maybe. But saws are made for a reason. Saws, the teeth are such that they are made to cut through hard material such as wood or bone. That is their job. And so when they're actually going through bone, they're creating a waste material by, if anyone has cut, wood, that it creates wood chips, okay, when you're actually sawing through wood. So I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's very, very difficult to cut through bone with a run-of-the-mill knife.
You would need a tremendous amount of force with a handheld knife, right? In order to cut through bone?
And a lot of persistence.
Okay. Now, how about a powered saw?
So mechanically powered saws are made for ease of use, right? So that saves you time. And it is doing the work of the energy transfer for you. So when you're dealing with a hand-powered implement, you are the one supplying the energy. A mechanically powered instrument, such as a saw, is producing the energy for you, which is why you need a battery or some other power source, right? And so it's doing the work for you and doing the cutting part, or what we would call the, because when you're cutting something, it's like you go back and forth, but a mechanically powered saw is doing that for you. So that is going to make it a lot easier because you are not exerting force yourself or energy yourself. The instrument is doing that for you.
Are you able to determine, what brand of knife, what type of knife was used
So that's
first?
called, so we can determine roughly the class of the tool, which is what we did in this instance. Sometimes, and anthropologists typically don't determine an exact tool. That's not our job. Those are tool mark experts, which are beyond our training. Now, because of the type of bone this is, vertebrae have what's called trabecular bone in them. It means it has spongy bone. When you look at a cut mark, can I pass this around?
Up to the judge.
Okay. So this is, I think it's cow bone. It's not human.
But is it still symbolic of what a human would look like?
Yeah, so this is symbolic of what bone looks like when it's cut through. So this is a saw mark through what we call cortical bone. Cortical bone is very thick. This is a long bone. But cervical vertebrae don't look like this. They have what's called trabecular bone, which looks like spongy bone, so it's a sponge. So if you walk, does anyone want to touch it? You don't have to. No. But you can see the striations in there too, and you can feel the cut mark itself. But that's cortical bone. That would have been, that's easy to determine, or relatively easy, assuming you have the right parts, to determine further what the type of saw that would have been used for. Now, because of the cervical vertebra, how they're designed anatomically, they don't have a lot of cortical bone. They have trabecular bone. So trabecular bone is spongy. It'd be like looking at a bunch of open spaces and trying to find those striations that you see on the bone that's getting passed around. It's not possible for the most part. So, yeah, so it depends on the bones in the body. These bones in particular, you're not able to get more specific, which is why we stated it the way we did.
And I don't know if I can simplify it or tell me if I'm oversimplifying.
Well, I probably overexplained
Now,
it, so.
if it's a smaller bone, sometimes it's harder to make further determinations because you're dealing with a smaller bone versus a larger
It's
bone.
not just the size of the bone, it's the structure. So that's what I was trying to get at, is the structure of the bone is different, where if you have a lot of that thick cortical bone and you cut through it with an instrument, then you can see the features that are necessary to make a call on the specific type of saw that was used. These do not have that type of structure because they're small and because they are primarily made of trabecular bone, which is spongy bone, which is some of that you saw in the images too, where you saw these air spaces that were in there. That's the trabecular bone that has been exposed.
Okay. Now, I've stood next to you. You're a petite individual. Is it possible for a petite individual to have decapitated
Well,
in this way?
mechanically powered saws do the work for you. So the energy transfer is coming from the saw. So, and they're made so that many different types of people can use them to do, whatever it is they're going to do with that saw. So many different people could use a mechanically powered saw to cut through hard materials such as wood or bone.
So it wouldn't be impossible for a smaller female to do so, correct?
I don't know if I want to comment on that specifically, but the energy transfer from the mechanically powered saw makes it so many different types of people can operate that tool to get through harder material.
But there's females and males that
Yes.
use that
Oh,
tool
yeah.
in life, correct?
Yeah.
And they're able to do so.
Yes.
So just to be clear, the incision happened back to front in this case, correct?
That's correct.
2 implements were used, correct?
Correct.
That was a knife.
Possibly a knife. There is a very slight chance it could have been a very fine-toothed bow saw, but it's likely a non-serrated or serrated knife.
Okay. And that was based on your conclusions, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then also a powered saw, correct?
A mechanically powered saw. Yes.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Burns, let me just preface my questions of you that we take no issue with your findings.
Okay.
You were asked a question just a moment ago whether or not it would be possible if a small woman could have done this, and you said you didn't want to give an opinion as to that, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I would reference the user manual for a mechanically powered saw to
Okay.
see who should or should not or could
But
operate
all
that.
things, I'm sorry, I did not mean to interrupt you.
Yep, you're fine.
But all things being equal, it would be easier for a large person, let's say a 6'4", 205-pound person, to sever this vertebrae than a smaller person, 5'3", 130 pounds.
Again, I'm not going to comment on the capabilities of different individuals on their ability to operate a mechanically powered saw.
Okay, but you'll agree with me that a larger person is more powerful generally than a smaller person, in general.
I mean, assuming they have full capabilities and they're not disabled and all of that.
Absolutely healthy.
Again, I don't want to comment on the capabilities of different people. Mechanically powered saws do the work for you.
Absolutely, but let me ask you this question. Generally, a larger, healthy person is stronger than a smaller, infirm person.
Yes.
Fair? You had testified concerning the complex nature of the vertebrae in the human neck,
Yeah,
correct?
sure.
And when you discussed this complexity, are you talking about the interlocking nature of the vertebrae?
Yes.
As in this case, we had part of C2 severed, correct?
Correct.
And that was included in your analysis concerning C2 and C3.
Correct.
So when we talk about this complexity, it's because you've got these bones that are entwined.
That's
fair to
right.
say?
Yes.
You had testified that this area, specifically C2, C3, is very, very sturdy.
Yes.
Sturdy and complex.
Yes.
This knife, obviously, you were not given any sort of a sample, and you said that's beyond
No,
your area of
that's correct.
expertise. No comparisons.
Correct.
Same thing with the question concerning the mechanically powered saw. Again, no comparisons.
That's
that you're
correct.
Aware of. But we know that it was a knife.
Yes.
Well, or you said a very fine, another serrating instrument. In addition,
So the hand-powered instrument was either a non-serrated or serrated knife, most likely, and very unlikely, but possible, a fine-toothed bow saw for the hand-powered one. The mechanically powered one could be any number of saws. We don't have enough evidence to say one way or another. Now, I wasn't told, they just wanted an analysis done. I was not told any number of instruments when I was given these specimens.
understood. So In reference to the hand-powered knife, that still could have been electric, perhaps, but very fine.
So I don't know about a hand, like you're saying, like a mechanically powered knife.
Correct. In addition to a mechanically powered saw.
Yeah, so anything mechanically powered would produce very uniform striations, whether it was a knife that was mechanically powered or not. These were very uneven and in different directions. So unlikely.
Unlikely, but possible, perhaps.
Probably not.
But you are very comfortable in your testimony and your conclusion that we had a mechanically powered saw.
Correct.
And that was given the nature of basically the injury to C2 through C3.
Correct.
You are unable to opine as to the width of the saw blade, anything of that nature?
So that we don't have enough evidence for. If you had the other pieces of the vertebra that were missing in this case, and if there were what we call false starts, which would have produced a kerf floor, which is the bottom of the cut mark, we would have been able to say more, but we cannot say anything more than what we said in the report.
These cuts that you examined through C2, C3, the complex, sturdy vertebrae, consistent with the Sawzall?
Can you
Sawzall.
restate that?
Yeah, consistent, what you saw, findings, would that be consistent with?
With the mechanically powered saw,
Correct.
yes.
Are you able to opine as to what kind?
No,
Okay. Are you able to opine as to consistency? Like if I ask you, hey, we have a Sawzall that's generally used for cutting through drywall, things of that nature, would that be consistent with your findings here, having been used?
a drywall saw.
A Sawzall.
Yes, so it can include any mechanically powered saw, yes.
Fair. And you're not able to opine as to whether it was battery powered or plug-in, correct?
No,
Are you able to opine as to the amount of time this may have taken?
you mean the time in which it was inflicted on the neck?
Correct.
No. I should say, when we were invited to the office to assess the decedent was fully fleshed. So in our assessment of bone, we call something perimortem, when a defect is, made on a bone at, around, or shortly after the time of death, meaning our interval is wide. I cannot, like a forensic pathologist could tell you different things based on soft tissue. Hard tissue reacts in a wider scale. So we cannot tell if it happened shortly before, at, or shortly after time of death. It could have been any of those, according to our analysis of bone, on how bone reacts to those implements.
So, and please tell me if I'm oversimplifying this, but it's hard to give a window whether the person died, had just died, correct?
We cannot give so it could have been right before they died, they were still alive. It could have been at the time of death, or it could have been shortly after the time of death.
So it could have been before they died or after they died? This
According to the way we do our analysis with bone, it could have been at any point in time in that perimortem period, shortly before, at, or shortly after time of death.
Are you able to give an opinion concerning how long it would take a person to be decapitated?
No.
All right. You authored your report in reference to your findings November 20th, 2023?
Correct.
Thank you. I have no further
Yes.
questions.
Can you read that statement?
Yes, Your Honor, court's indulgence. And just briefly, now you're not able to determine whether these incisions happen post-mortem, pre-mortem, anything like that, correct?
Correct. So our definition of perimortem with bone, because of the way bone reacts to trauma, we cannot tell if the timing is shortly before or shortly after time of death. Now, we can tell if something is healed, right? So antemortem is what we call that. So healing trauma, if you break a bone, it starts to heal, but bone takes a longer time to heal.
So if the forensic pathologist would have concluded that this happened post-mortem, you wouldn't have a reason to
I would have
dispute
no
that?
reason to question that, no.
Past witness. Any comment?
Yes, are you able to give an opinion concerning Learning whether it was a reciprocal saw, or, you know what I'm saying, type of saws that go back and forth, or a type of saw that goes
Oh,
in a
yes,
circle?
can I reference my report?
Please, I have no objection.
Yes, thank you. I do not have it.
Yes, if I may approach.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so because, again, of what I talked about earlier, the structure of this bone, has very little cortical bone, or that really, actually, who's got my cow bone over there? Okay, yeah, thank you. Because of the structure of the bone itself, we are not able to say further what type of saw it is, so it could have been any type of mechanical saw.
So you're not able to opine as to the speed of the saw, anything of
No.
that nature either? Or
No,
whether
because
it was-
there's very little area that is cortical bone, which is where those features would be observable, but because of the type of bone, we didn't have enough evidence to say one way or another.
But again, and just finally, my final question in reference to this complex nature of the
Sure.
cervical spine, small but sturdy.
Yes.
correct? Thank you. No further questions.
Any problems, Dave?
No further questions, Your Honor.
Do the ladies and gentlemen of the jury have any questions for this witness? Okay, seeing no response, no more excuse, thank you very much.
Okay.
for your testimony today.
Thank you.
Dave, would you mind gathering her remarks?
Yes.
This goes back to the defense.